Don't
All right,
forget
let me
your
eat my
friends.
lasagna.
You're used to that.
Don't forget the friends
You're
of the
alive.
Jolly Ranchers this week.
Go ahead.
Okay.
Good evening, the Augusta community. This is the Augusta School Department Curriculum and Education Committee meeting at 5:30 on Wednesday, May 14, 2025. I'm Rita Pello, your chair, and I'm going to go to my left to introduce folks that are here in the meeting, and we'll do the table first, and then we'll come back and wrap around to all of the wonderful guests we have today. Go ahead, Muffy.
Hi, Muffy Witham, Board Chair and ex officio member of the committee.
Susan Parks, Ward 2, member of the committee.
Caitlin Rodriguez, Director of Technology Integration.
Michelle Varner, Administrative Assistant.
Christina Watton, Assistant Superintendent.
Mike Tracy, Superintendent.
Shannon Morgan, I'm an ESOL teacher and the multilingual district coordinator. Jessica Gurney, cultural liaison.
Peter Michelson, high school math teacher.
Kim Lipscomb, principal of Coney.
Deborah Bastian, German teacher at Coney High School.
Brad Davis, high school English teacher.
Tina McDonald, Principal at Huzzy. Shelby Thibodeau, Director of Special Education.
And Teresa.
Teresa Bowden, Principal of Farrington.
We love an entrance. All right, well, we did our call to order. Our second agenda item is concerning innovative schools.
Great, thank you. We were asked to provide a presentation, just a little background on innovative schools. It's really something that's taken the place that historically was our NEASC accreditation process. It's an ongoing process, and I'm going to let Kim give the background and how we got to where we're at and what we do through the process. Mrs. Lipscomb?
Awesome, thank you. So I'm here with, as you can see, some of the teachers at Coney who are highly involved in this process. And we presented before.
You want to have your
Yeah, I was
committee
like, you
come
want
up?
to come right up to the table?
Yeah,
So
and
the,
also I can move where I can.
The innovative schools people, you want to come up first?
That's a great
You
idea.
guys,
Yeah.
you can sit in that seat. Just don't-
We love
And
when
we got two
our,
chairs
like,
here,
staff is
too.
here, so come on down.
Yeah,
Don't be shy, Brad.
there. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Tracy.
Thanks, Tracy.
You're welcome.
Wise.
Okay, so I'm here with our amazing staff people who are highly involved in the leadership team of the Innovative Schools process. And we're each going to take a little section, but we made you a handout that we actually have passed out to you before. We just updated it based on what's going on. But I wanted to share that as Mr. Tracy said, that at one point we were working on the NEASC accreditation process a long time ago. And as we were going through it, we didn't find that it was as useful for what we were looking for. And so we were looking for other options. And at that time, an organization called the League of Innovative Schools through the Great Schools Partnership, thank you. And so we jumped on board, and that was in 2011. We decided to continue our involvement and have been involved in this where it's a really thorough self-assessment where the entire staff, middle school and high school, ed techs and teachers go through a self-study with a book called the Global Best Practices book, which is a book that you can see on the right. There's a first edition, and we've used the second edition. And we did these self-assessments in 2011, 13, 16, 20, and 24. It's unbelievable that we've done it for as long as we have, but we have had such great success with it. So we wanted to talk to you about various pieces of it. So I'm going to turn it over to Brad.
Yeah, so because this process is more staff and faculty oriented than I think your normal accreditation process, where most of the time the teachers and the staff just sort of sit on the sidelines and watch things happen. Since staff is fully involved in this, we needed a leadership team. So the leadership team generally every time is made up of volunteers, staff who volunteer and want to be a part of kind of leading this process. It's all staff as far as I know. I think anyone can apply to become a leader of a subcommittee. I currently co-chair with a still an ed tech, or is she full-fledged special ed teacher? Is she a teacher? Okay. But there are ed techs involved because obviously they're a very important part of the system. So what the leadership team does is we lead subcommittees, which I think Peter will talk a little bit more about later. But we are leaders of a specific subcommittee where we lead kind of a whole group of teachers who also sign up or volunteer to be part of the subcommittee. and lead discussions, brainstorming sessions, gather data, and then come back as a group of team leaders in order to discuss kind of the direction that we sort of want the school to go in, where we need improvement, where we think we can make a difference, just things like that. As far as kind of where we focus our concentration, we look at these dimensions, which if you have your paper, you can see in that red box. This is from the Global Best Practices book, which I think it's a copy of it right there, the cover of it. And it breaks there's 4, I guess, mega sections between teaching and learning, organization, design, school leadership, and school district. And those are all broken down. And what we did was, the last time I was involved, was there was a meeting with all the staff in the food court, I believe, and we broke down every one of these things and determined whether or not we were still progressing towards reaching that goal, or whether we had already met it. So we're just kind of breaking down what we need to do, what we need to work on, and where we kind of already are. And then after that, then based on the things that the faculty decided that we still needed to work on, those were put on giant pieces of poster paper that were taped to the wall in the auditorium. And I think each teacher was given 3 or 4 red stickers, and they walked around. And so, for example, just if you look kind of where our subcommittees are, teachers would sort of place a red sticker on where they believed we needed to focus on for the school. And then whichever ones had the most stickers, that was kind of where we ended up with our 2024 to 2027 subcommittees. So the continual improvement and learning communities, multiple pathways.
Don't tell too much because that's.
Am I going into yours?
I mean, you've already.
I'm so sorry. I will stop talking and pass it over to my colleague then.
Okay.
Sharing is caring, Brad.
Exactly. All right, and then Peter?
Sure. So as Brad mentioned, each subcommittee is led by 1 or 2 teachers. We get together, we talk about what's working, we talk about what's improving, what could use some attention, and try to come up with ways to make sure that our school is continually growing and our staff are continually becoming more, I don't know where I was going with that. We're just trying to make the school, especially my group, we're trying to make teachers want to be here. So my group focuses on school culture, staff recruitment and retention. Currently, I'm trying to set up a fundraiser for one of our staff members at a bowling alley, because I thought that'd be a fun way to encourage our team to get together and just be together outside of school, but also for a good cause. Leadership team supports the teacher leaders as they guide their subcommittees through the school improvement process. While administrators serve on the leadership team, they do not participate in the work of individual subcommittees. So we're doing all of this with just open minds, open thoughts. The teachers say whatever they want, and we kind of have to sift through and find what's most important of what they're saying. All staff members are required to join a subcommittee and may sign up based on their interests. Before any proposed solution moves forward, it must be discussed with both administration and central office, and that's why we have our monthly meetings, is to figure out if these ideas are actually going to be able to be done and work. That's all I'm going to say.
Good job, Deb.
All right. This is my 26th year in the district, so I went through the old process and was on the original League of Innovative Schools committee. Was first on the technology committee for many years, and then I took a break, and then I came back and did the teacher morale committee, and now on the continual improvement in learning communities. Basically, we're looking at professional development, like what do we as teachers feel we need for professional development, having a voice, and planning some of those activities, and like who we bring in and how and when. And so just having a more input, I guess. So we've actually come up with a lot of solutions over the years. Some examples, you can read through these, but we've done one of the first ones, I think, was the teacher's room. Like we didn't really have a staff room one single staff room in the new Coney, and we missed that from the old Coney. And we said, it really feels divided and lonesome a bit. So then we got the new teacher's room, and that's really what we've got. And I think it's a big improvement. We've also created the Coney Food Pantry based on student needs. Technology, we were really kind of on the cutting edge of Google Classroom when COVID hit, because the technology committee had already gotten us on board with that. So a lot of teachers were already using it because of the committee work. So I think we've done a really good job with that. And then for subcommittees now, we've got the one that I'm doing. Brad is doing the multiple pathways, looking at different ways that students can reach their graduation requirements. Interventions and support, staff recruitment and retention, that's Peter, and that's kind of an outgrowth of the teacher morale committee, where we said, teacher morale has a lot to do with teacher retention and recruitment. We also always looking at time and space, scheduling. What do we feel is going to be best in the future? Do we want to stick with the 4x4? How can we best utilize the time we're given? And then academic expectations and assessment practices, that's always kind of a standard. We need to look at those things, and
And they're talking a lot about AI right now, what role that would play, and having discussions around that, in that particular committee. So it really is our school improvement process. Every school needs to have a school improvement process. So this is something that this model, honestly, out of the, I don't know as anybody has taken it on as committed as we have, because the Great Schools Partnership has gone in a lot of different directions. They were a while focusing in on standards based learning, or they're focusing on various things. We just loved their process that they set up, and we loved their book that guides. And again, it's, are we developing in a area? Are we performing in it? Are we exemplary in it? And it gives all kinds of really specific examples of what schools should be doing to help support students and staff. And so it's such a staff empowerment, and gives people voice. And we are just really supportive of the process. The one challenge about it is you have to find time to meet. And what that means is that we would meet during an early release, because the ed techs aren't there if we meet after school, and so they wouldn't be able to stay. So to get that voice in there, we have to earmark time, which honestly, I can't imagine a better use of time than trying to figure out how to improve your community. And so we take about half an hour to 45 minutes working through that pretty much once a month. This year we had a couple of trainings we needed to do that we didn't get. We've had a little bit of a gap, but generally we meet once a month, and the community leaders run it as they've described. So that's an overview.
Does every teacher then get a book?
Yes.
Is that something you do?
Well, what happens is I was at this training, and this woman brought 100 books. And I said, "Ooh, what are you doing with those?" And she's the Great Schools Partnership, and she goes, "Oh, I have to bring them home." And I go, "You want me to take them off your hands?" So we've been able to get these books from home for free. First they came with the first edition when we started in 2011, and then, like I said, I just went to this MPA event, and I was like, "Ooh, I'll take all those, and you don't even have to move them." And so I was able to give one for every staff member. So ed tech. Teacher, we asked them to keep them in their rooms, but sometimes people love them so much they take them, whether they mean to or not. So then we sometimes have to get more.
I have a ton of questions.
So do I, Madam Chair. So,
So what did you say about being nice?
what? I wanted to ask if that PD for the workshops, because I know you guys do a lot of those days. Is this an embedded thing as part of those PDs, or is it always that outside monthly meeting? Are folks ever during those times you guys have sanctioned working with the subcommittees?
So we have to do it during the early releases because we won't get the ed techs. I don't know if you heard me say that, and I don't know if I'm answering the right question. Okay. So like we have to do it during, like for Coney, it's like 11:15 to 2:15. And so we'll earmark a time during that. Is that what your question is?
Yeah, because I was wondering, well, you'll get them, you guys don't get the ed techs on like those big all-staff
We
days?
could
or-
do it during workshop days, but usually those are like meaty, like whole long things.
Okay.
We could do that, and sometimes we do. It really depends on what central office.
I would say, Kim really advocates hard for this time because this is Coney's PD, but we also have all of our district-wide PD. So really, it's been
I
one
see.
early release a month is for the schools to do building-based work, such as this amazing work they're doing. And then the other is district-wide for our district-wide goals. So it is I know that has been a question that we've been talking about though, is our early release days like adequate and we do have a survey out right now collecting some feedback on that, but it is really important work, as you can see, that's happening during that time. And ed techs, I think they only have to work maybe one full workshop day. There's something very strange about that here. But the early release days, they are here.
I have a couple, because I've heard this presentation before and I still have some concerns. I feel like I can't get my head around what actually happens. And I think you just said you just did a new self-assessment in 24. Can we see the results of the self-assessment?
Yeah.
Could we ever get that? And when you talk about a plan, is it an actual action plan with action steps towards achieving those goals? Is that written somewhere?
No, we have not written it up. It's written by the team leaders through minutes of
Right.
what they do, but they are given a lot of freedom to be able to look at what we need. And then, like I said, this leadership team, if they go in a direction that is maybe not something that the school department wants to do, then I can give feedback to the leadership team member, and then they bring that back to their community.
So how does the school board get a report on what was identified as goals and what was the success towards those goals or not? And I'm not saying that we necessarily need to see success, but would like to see if it didn't work, what was in the way of it working? Was there something else that was needed to have that goal? Even something that was needed from the board to support the achievement of some of those goals? Where is that?
So we have done that before, and I kind of remember us talking about this before, last year or the year before that we presented. So there is a document that says like what things were addressed, that we can put together every year if you want.
And I think I'm looking for something more than was addressed.
Yeah.
Because addressed means a lot of different things. It's sort of like facilitate the guy from Venezuela, what does that exactly mean? Facilitate versus.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying it's on that level by any means. So I was looking for something that really showed that progress so that if people say, so what are you doing? I don't know if you watched any of the city council meetings where they were asking us for specific evidence on how we knew that academic success was being measured, and it's kind of like, well, and we didn't really have a good answer for that. So I'm just wondering if we could have some kind of a document, and I don't even mean it to be a judgmental document, that wouldn't be the purpose at all, it would just be more for our edification. The other thing that I see missing, and maybe it's intentional on this, is does the community have any input? Is there ever any categories, so this is not intended for the community to have an opportunity to see what's needed or what they view as needed, or maybe it's just that they don't know what's happening, so they might think something is needed and it's already covered. So that's not addressed in this process.
Not at this time, if that was something that we wanted to include in that. I mean, mostly that comes up through the school board and through the superintendent. If they have like through the gold process.
Traditionally, the NEAS process wouldn't have involved community either.
You have community on the committees.
Well, it's an outside
Right.
source.
Right, but you do have community members on all of
I
the
see
committees.
what you mean.
Yeah,
I see what
for
you mean.
input.
You could have
Right.
I feel like some of these committees do address like bringing in the community. Like
Okay.
when we identify,
Yeah.
like, for example, one of the pieces is, if I can find it, the international and multicultural learning. So that's where we've, over the years, brought in a lot more of the community involvement because we identified that as a need. So it's not necessarily going out into the community to get their opinion, but from the inside looking out, saying, this is where we could really use the community to come in, and then we figure out ways to bring them in.
That makes sense. I understand that.
So I guess if you're asking for a reporting up structure where the committees meet and then annually they come here and say,
Here's our progress.
here's what we determined.
And I would really like it on, if something they didn't do, that there was something we could help to help them get it done.
Right.
You know, I
Yeah, or
would
put in the
look forward for
budget.
that opportunity, right? And then when we go to city council, we can say, and this is why we're doing that, because the teachers demonstrated that there was a need for this. I also wanted to ask about, when I look at the previous work and I look at the examples that you cited, it seems to be, and it's just because I still have, still kind of scalded from the scolding.
Oh, are you?
I am. When I look at your previous work, it seems to be pretty climate heavy, to improve climate in the building, and that may be a reflection of that was what was needed. But I wonder where the academic piece is on. I see a couple of things, I see some things on that undoubtedly, but it looks, social, emotional, heavy, and that's okay. It could be the need, especially since COVID. I get that. So I would just have a question of, so what were any of the goals for academic improvement? You don't have to answer that, I'm just throwing that.
No, I'll just give you a couple examples. The counseling tab was really huge because what we were finding is that there was no way to communicate in a big school to be able to work with each other. And so the teachers came up with an idea to have, it was a process to get there, but they actually worked with Web School to create a counseling tab where teachers could write strategies that have worked with students academically and behaviorally. So it could be that, like this particular student does well, sitting closer. If you give graphic organizers, that kind of stuff that helps students be successful. So that's one piece. The other academic piece is the ramp time, because what we ended up doing is do a 30-minute intervention block. And what they were finding is that there was no way to really help students during the day. And so actually, since this, the elementary has done this as well. They have an intervention block, and I've heard a lot of schools doing that now. So that's highly academic, because what they're doing is reteaching, or they're
They don't have to pull out, right? They're
right.
closing
And
their
a lot of our
lessons.
students have to go home for a variety of reasons, right? Like they're helping their families with work, or taking care of kids, or they're involved in extracurricular activities. So this way they can make up a partial test. They could reteach vocabulary. They could, give independent time with teacher support. So that's a highly academic piece. I know it doesn't sound like it, but the student instructors is also another academic piece. Is that something unique to Coney is that we have one of our classes, students can get credit to be a student instructor. And so they go into a class like biology or probs and stats that Peter teaches, or English that Brad teaches, or German, and they help to teach the class. So like it's like, right, a teaching assistant, but they're called student instructors and teacher aides. So that's academic.
We gotta get Caitlin one of those next year for Innovation Center.
Oh, yeah.
I borrowed some 7th graders today. They were very nice.
Teachers would love that. That's a great idea.
I have one more.
I don't know, those are just some examples, but remember, this is just a list, so I could go back and
Right.
see.
No, I'm just curious, and as we get new board members on, I look from that angle too, that they really don't know the good stuff, and that's your fault too, Kim.
Okay.
It's your fault, because you don't sing your we don't hear your praises, it's like, it's just what you do, and you've accepted it as just what you do, but it's really good. And it's kind of like you're sort of humble in what you do. Well, it's just, it's really good. And we need to hear what happens because it's exciting and we really like it. So I didn't mean that in a bad way. It's your fault.
Well, in her defense, we did say that we wanted more positive things, and that's where the Facebook and Instagram came out from, saying we need to sing our own praises.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
and I think we have done a much better job of that over the last few years, of
Yay.
putting those things out.
Perfect.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Continue.
okay, Susan, go ahead. Me,
You, yes. you can-
okay, 22 dimensions, 4.1 is school board. So what does that mean for us? What is that about? And district admin? So talk to me.
Do you guys want to do it? Want me to do it?
I'd do it
So-
if I had the book.
Okay, yeah. It's always interesting, so I have to go try to find the book, but, basically what ends up happening is that one's probably the one area that's hard for us to really like affect change. So it's an area that never comes up as a priority area because it's not like, right, like you all have a task to do and we are not gonna be able to really tell you how to do that, right? Like we might be able to give input, but, so what they do is evaluate the school board's piece and I can send that to you if you want. Actually, I was gonna bring you each a book so you could really look at it and I can, happy to get it for you. And so like we would measure what we thought the school board does and there's certain criteria. And then we do the same thing for district administration. And so if that was a priority area, we could make a committee on it. And then we would like, maybe we wanted to improve relations with the school board. That's not, we don't feel like that, but let's say we wanted to, then a committee would get together about that and like prioritize ways that we could make better relations if that was a problem. So it's usually, it's not, I feel like we kind of, to be honest with you, avoid those to a huge amount. Not because we don't think the world of you, it's just not something that we can like create. It's hard to really make a committee that's gonna be like a whole bunch of work on.
Was it this committee though that brought them the treats earlier this year during school board appreciation? I think it was.
Yeah, I don't.
They did bring you guys treats.
Yes.
Remember the fruit
That was
platter?
yummy.
Yeah.
It might have been.
That was a badly needed night too. if I recall.
Yeah.
Well,
Board
Rita,
appreciation. Yes, Mr.
if I may,
Yes.
when we shift this to what can we maybe do as a
Yeah.
board?
Yeah.
The board's going to be meeting in July to sort of look at the collection of work that we've done this year. And I know this board enough to know they love to support our schools.
Yeah.
So if the staff gave sort of like before they left, sort of like you did last year, like what do we think in our priorities, like Coney Middle and High School might be next year?
Yeah.
That'd be good for me to have that information to share with them in July, because that information might help prompt a revision of their priorities to then set our district goals that we do as an admin team. And so I'd rather not like make it up on my own in the sense, like I'd rather like whatever we set for district goals be grounded in what the staff tell us that they need as part of and I think the board likes hearing that information.
I'm looking, I brought the wrong folder, brought the budget folder and not my curriculum committee folder, but I'm looking at these, just overall, these subcommittees that have been identified as being the high needs from the teachers, because that's what I'm sort of hearing, and that's what I've paced, is that you've got a teacher voice, teacher-led, entirely professionally engaged group of staff that all pick a subcommittee that matters to them about the school culture, climate, and instruction of Coney in order to improve the way in which students engage and how they perform in the outcomes, and for the teachers, right? The teachers are here as professionals and improving. I almost see this as going side to almost exactly with the goals, because I know multiple pathways has been a passion project that you have, alternate ed program that started up, that was part of our goals too, to see less dropout, to see more opportunities, different pathways. I see that with interventions and support, same thing, meeting those high needs of those students. Staff recruitment and retention. I know I thought we had a staff goal as well. I can't remember, but it was kind of a culture of staff wellness goal. Thank you. Yes, exactly. And so I know you guys do that needs, and then the board comes and does the goals and gets that view. But yeah, this is kind of that work that's already being done. Muffy suggested, it was a good suggestion of kind of a report out, but like
that one page that comes all the way up to the board from all of these subcommittees, with sort of, this is why we have identified this as something that matters, so that we can continue to support you guys, because I was a high school teacher. There's so much that you're asked to do. And the fact that this is completely led by staff means that you have the buy-in to do the school improvement work that's really hard and continuous already. So with that buy-in, which is often the challenge, how can we as a board facilitate and continue to support you guys to do that? Because this is an amazing, I didn't really realize that this was all teacher-led. The tardy process, you guys are looking web to school, those like really simple little logistical things that make a teacher's life a nightmare if they don't know how to do. And they, you know what I mean? And you guys are all there to support them and you're all part of it. So I just think that because these go along with our goals, because I see the connection, it would be amazing to get that sort of like, even if it's just a couple sentences from each committee, because I want to understand how we can use the same language and keep saying the same things from here to here.
If we knew what they were working on next year, before they start working on it, we could set some board priorities around this to reinforce that.
And I appreciate that this is 3 years, because even though you always have those outcomes and goals for the students that are in the seat that grade, you have continuous goals for how to improve the whole school, the governance structure, the communications, the channels of teachers and PD. Those are longer than 1 year can achieve. So the fact that that can be continuous work and you continue to focus on the same things, I appreciate that, because education can sometimes move so fast beyond sort of even the foundation that you can set. So if that's it, because I don't want to change our board goals too much, right? Like we've already had it's like, I don't want to revert, I don't want to move it all back. I want to keep growing and improving, because our goals are almost, if you look at it, kind of like the teaching and learning, the organizational, it's kind of those big buckets. So how can we all be working in tandem together for that? So
we're probably just going to refine them.
Right. So that if you guys are continuing to do that every year with your subcommittees, refining what's happening and looking at that, then we can be we can be partners of you in that conversation and certainly support the work. So that's.
Brad had a comment for you to say.
Yeah.
Oh, I was just thinking.
I was talking about
No, not at all. We put out kind of a summary or a statement to the staff so that they kind of know what subcommittee they might want to pick.
Right.
So is that something you're thinking of? Is just that simple statement
I
of
think,
sort of like a summary of what we plan on doing in our subcommittee?
Done this year.
and then kind of
Yep.
keeping as your monthly meeting, someone taking notes of like what's going on. I mean, I can see the work. I can see the work. It would be amazing to kind of now be in front of it and sort of see it as it's happening.
Maybe what you're thinking of working on next year.
So to follow up on that's one of the question on the subcommittees. Do the subcommittees change each year? Are those always your subcommittees? Okay,
They
so
only
you
get to
don't-
change every year,
Mhm.
3 years.
Yeah.
And maybe by the end they're
Every
sick of
3
each other.
years they change. Okay, so when you
We
set
did
them
that.
up,
Remember they did that self-assessment every couple. Yep.
and so you might not always even have that number of subcommittees. You might have fewer sometimes.
Yeah,
We had
generally,
one less than last year.
yeah.
Okay, so that's determined by that self-assessment on what, okay, I got it.
Sometimes we get new members as new staff moves in and staff leave. The new members coming in get a choice as to which committee they're gonna do, so.
And they already feel part of something maybe bigger than themselves in the school too.
And just one last thing I'll share is that Massillonsky was interested in learning about this. So the team met with Massillonsky's administrators to talk about the process that we use.
Yeah.
Actually Mike facilitated
A
that.
lot of districts have moved away from the ASC accreditation. A lot of, I would love the data on how it's changed our post-secondary graduates and where they're able to go. Zero. In other words, it's not like Orno doesn't take Coney kids because we don't have an ES.
Oh, it's never.
It's just not a non-issue. It's because sometimes we've had that question, Coney's not accredited anymore? Well, they haven't been since 2010 or whatever.
Yeah.
And it hasn't changed a thing post-secondarily for kids. So I think that's important to know. And a lot of schools have moved away from it.
Well, Dr. Watt's kindly reminding me of
Yes,
that a second.
with my fake
agenda
watch.
item. Last comment, last question, but I know we've got other folks and we might do a little maybe switch of the tables.
Yeah.
Any last comments, questions from the
No, I just
Board
wanted to
chair.
clarify that we're very curious about it, but we don't want to insert ourselves into it. Because you guys have a good thing going and that's not the intent at all, to walk on that in any way.
Yeah.
But just to be able to know how you're doing and what we can do
that groundswell?
Yeah.
Exciting.
Yeah.
Good work.
Thank you guys.
Very good. Thanks for asking us about it.
Thank you.
All right, switch.
Every time we do this.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
It is.
Yeah.
I know.
That's so mean, isn't it? But I'm Thursday. I know. Yes. Okay,
Do you wanna?
Yeah, over here.
I'll come with you.
We're still on.
I'm just gonna sit in on this. Plus I keep banging my head on the.
That's ridiculous.
So I need
All right.
Okay.
Yay. Okay, so we're on to multilingual learners and ESOL programming. Really exciting. Thank you, folks, for being here. And I think Shannon, are you, or Dr. Wan to start? Whoever.
Honestly, I will turn it over to Shannon, let her
Perfect.
introduce. I'm
Okay.
in awe of what you're gonna hear about.
Oh, awesome.
So I'm Shannon Morgan. I'm the district ESOL coordinator. I'm also an ESOL teacher at Barrington. You can go to our next slide where we introduce ourselves. Oops. I guess I should look this way. Sure. I'm Jessica Gurney. I'm the district's cultural liaison. So my job is to help support families, students, and our staff here at school and bridge the gap from home to school. Currently, I'm doing the position half-time, so we needed someone to do ESOL teaching in the morning, so that's what I'm currently doing, and then I do the cultural liaison piece in the afternoon. So part of that is sharing information and resources with our families, and our overall goal for all students is for families to be an active part of their child's education, and so that's the goal that we work on every day. So I'm just going to talk about some common terms in ESOL. We keep using ESOL. These are just a few. There is a really, really long list. ESOL just means English to speakers of other languages, which is what we refer to the program as. Sometimes you hear it referred as ELL or English language learners. It's the same thing. And the state of Maine adopted the term multilingual learner, ML, referring to the student. It used to be EL, like an English learner, but they changed to multilingual because they are often learning more than just English. I'm also going to talk about an ILAP, which is similar to like an IEP. It's an individual language acquisition plan for our ML students. And Access, you may have heard that term. That is their annual language assessment that they take each year. And this is the front page, in a second, of a sample of an ILAP. And it just kind of shows, this is like an at a glance, their grade, date of birth, school district. It gives us their U.S. school entry date, U.S. entry date, birth country, languages, things like that. Some educational background. Do I need a translator? Some other things like that. And then it goes on for 3 pages with assessment information and their language plan, and meeting dates and things.
Right there? Yep.
Which I don't know. And then I also wanted to just give you a sample of what a WIDA Access score report, this is a student score report and what it looks like. In WIDA, there are 4 domains: listening, speaking, reading, and writing. And this gives you the breakdown. Once they finish the Access test, they have to take a test in each domain. And it breaks it down per domain. And then as you can see below, oral language is broken down into listening and speaking put together. Literacy is reading and writing, comprehension, reading and listening. And then it gives us an overall score. So when we initially group students, we look at that overall score as like a step 1 to see where they fall. And then we dig into the other pieces a little bit more, because oftentimes, this one's not a great example, but what we find most often is like listening tends to be a much higher score. And then speaking depends on the student's background, but the reading and the writing tend to be much lower. And then on the left side, it just gives you an example of the levels. So level 1 is just considered entering. It goes like a 1.0, 1.1, 1.2, like that. And then level 1 and level 2 are considered like they could be a newcomer or they could just be like a beginner. Level 3 is developing. Level 4 is expanding. And then Maine Maine adopted the 4.5 score as exit criteria for the ML students. So when they reach a 4.5 or higher, then they are exited out of the program and they are on monitor for 2 years, but they are not considered ML anymore during that period. So if a teacher had a concern with a student within those 2 years, we still have to go through the screener process and give them the screener all over again before they can start receiving services again. And what else?
Does that happen often?
No, it does not happen often. Sometimes their reading lags behind just a little bit, but usually they can get caught up if they're part of Title I or intervention, things like that.
Otherwise, yeah.
I'm sorry, I forgot my paper. Don't forget to say anything. The next slide is just a little snippet of a timeline. This I actually got from a former ESOL teacher, Robin Wilkinson. She helped me with this.
But you made it pretty.
But I did. I know, Caitlin, you'd be so proud.
I
It's Canva. So in the 70s is when the program began. We had mostly Vietnamese and Cambodian students. And from the 70s to about 2005, according to Robin, there was no identification process. There was no assessment process. It was more like
Welcome.
like a little interview with a kid and be like, yep, come with me and I will help
See
you.
yourself.
And it was very, very informal. So around 2005 is when the identification and assessment was formally adopted in the Augusta School Department. And then around 2013, we saw an influx of Arabic speaking students and our staffing needs increased. And then roughly 10 years later, 2023, we were able to create the cultural liaison position to help with facilitating registration, family outreach. And that position, when it was created, it has changed a little bit over the last couple of years. And currently, we're kind of in an expansion phase again this year. We've seen about a 50% increase in the pre-K to 6 population and about 30% increase for the middle and the high school student population.
In the past
From-
2 years.
No, from last May, 2024.
How many students, how many students have you
Wow.
entered in the last 30 days?
In the last 30 days,
What do you think, 6, 8?
not so many in the last 30 days, but
Last-
if we said last 60
last 60.
or 90,
Since-
yeah.
Okay, since
Since
January.
Yeah.
How many staff have we added since that 50 or 30% increase?
0. Mhm.
But do you know how many kids? I mean, we were
Well,
talking,
Yeah, I mean, our refugee population itself is up 73% from last year, from the end of last year to where we are.
We started the year around 70 kids and we're up to
We
about
have-
97.
We
Yes,
have, we
we
do
have
have
all the
those
totals
numbers.
here.
I would say you're talking students, how many students would you say?
How many students?
Yeah, since January that we've registered, that's a tough question.
I would say.
I would say more than 20.
More than 20.
Yeah.
Well, I
would
know,
say
because we're
probably-
thinking pre-K all the way up to 12.
It was like
Yeah.
20 just since March.
Yeah, it's around
Yeah.
20 or 25.
Yeah, April was
So,
very
January.
busy. In May has slowed down a little bit, but April was,
Yeah.
we had a huge influx in April.
we had a couple
Mhm.
meetings in April.
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
blood pressures were up,
We,
trying to figure out
That's a
how
lot when you
to
kids.
help.
yeah, and then we'll talk about our elementary expansion too, but that was one of the reasons. And then the next slide is just sort of like a interesting list of, there are 16 languages that we have pre-K to 12. Obviously Arabic is the most common. There's about 147 kids, I think I counted total. And we have around 203 altogether, so. Mhm. And the last year or two, we've had a lot of kids coming in with Turkish and Kurdish, and some no Arabic and Turkish, or just Turkish or just Kurdish. So, and then you can just have, you can see like towards the bottom, some of those other languages, there's just one student or two.
When I started in 2022, we had about 70 kids, district-wide,
District one?
right? Because we had, we had 48, so we had about 100. Had about 100. Because we had 48 at Farrington when I started.
Yes.
No, 2.
Yes.
So we've doubled in the last since
Mhm.
2003, since 2022.
I know what you meant. And then Jessica's gonna talk a little bit about the cultural liaison registration process, and then we have some other numbers at the end.
And I apologize for having my back. My back. I thought we'd be in that big room at the podium, so this is much different than what I envisioned. Okay, so a big part of what I do is the registration process, and so you're probably wondering, how does that happen? So it can happen one of two ways. So a family will come into a school and they'll need assistance registering because they do not speak English at all. And so therefore I'm given their contact information and I schedule a registration meeting. So I do all of our meetings up at Coney. That's currently where my office is. So they come up to meet with me, or the other way the registration process starts is a family will return a registration packet. And in that is a language use survey. So that is required by law that we give it to every child enrolling pre-K to 12th grade. And on it, they'll indicate another language other than English. And if that is the case, then we have to give an English proficiency screener. So they come up to Coney to meet with me. Lots of times, I would say most of the families we've registered this year do not speak any English. And so therefore they do not have any paperwork filled out at all. Some of our families are able to read and write in their home language and some of them are not. So the registration process, typically I plan on 2 hours. And if they have, 3 or more students, it's going to take more time than that. For me, it's not just about getting them to sign their name on a piece of paper or to check off a box. It's to truly understand that when we, part of our registration packet is about attendance. What does that mean? What is your role as a parent? So I really try to take the time to go through that with them. And when I'm sitting with them, I try to put myself in their situation, right? So I'm a mom of 2 girls. If my kids were going to a new school in another country, I would want someone to explain everything to me. So part of that process also is a family intake that we do. And so sometimes, depending on how many people are with them or how much time we've spent together, sometimes I do this on a separate day. The family intake process usually takes about an hour. So I have a series of questions that we ask them, and it really helps us just get to know that family. So some of the questions, are their U.S. entry date, parents' occupation in their home country, and we ask a lot of questions about development of the children. What are their hobbies? What did schooling look like? And health questions, yes. And so what I found with this too is that sometimes families just want to say no to all the questions, and they, want us to appear that everything is perfectly fine. And so I try to connect with them on a personal level, as well as a professional level. So I say to them, they're right in my space, right? So I say, these are my girls. One of my girls is medically fragile. If I was going to register her at a new school and I wasn't honest, we wouldn't set her up for success, right? So I know some of these questions might be hard for you, but I really want you to be honest with me. And since I've taken that approach, it's helpful. Sometimes it doesn't, no matter what I say, we might find out something later, but just really trying to take the time with them. And so the family intake is then shared with all the teachers and the ESOL teachers, and I share it with administration as well, and who's going to be getting that student, so they know ahead of time. I try to do a summary at the top of the paper and include everything from bus information to anything that they might need to know. So that's typically done prior to starting. And then the other thing is, so they have to, if they're new to the country, they have to have the screener within their first 30 days. So I go out to the school, and this could be pre-K right now at Gilbert, and I give the screener. And then I follow up with the parents and make all that communication with them about the child qualifying and, what does that mean? So the registration process does take a lot of time. I would say working with our multilingual families takes double the time, but it's always worth it. So most of the families, I'm not able to, I don't speak any other language other than English. So we use Proprio. And so it's a comprehensive language service system that includes written, verbal, and video. And so I use that on my phone a lot. So if I'm giving a family a tour, I have Proprio right on my phone, so that I say my sentence and then, they're able to interpret it for the family. I've made over 200 calls. I have a detailed call log that we keep with our families. I would say the average call is probably at least 30 minutes. So I call the phone number, I get the language that we need, and then that's how we're able to communicate with the parents. All staff have access to that, so any teacher in the district can use that to contact a family. We use it for parent-teacher conferences. We do use the video call for IEP meetings and different things. And then we've tried to find some other means of communication as well, which are, less formal. So the WhatsApp is an app that translates. A lot of our families do not use email. So they'll send me messages on that. I also try, for example, I set up all their busing. So once I have the bus information, I call them with the interpreter and I'll say, you know, I want you to get a piece of paper and a pencil. Sometimes I'm not sure if they really do, right? So I always try to send any important information through the WhatsApp as well. So I try to send a picture of the bus stop through Google Maps. I try to send the bus times, the bus numbers, and then if they forget, they can refer back to that. Something else that we use is some people are using talking points. And so our whole goal is trying to break down the barrier in communication. I will say that we have a way to contact them. They do not have a way to contact us. And so that is something we're working on. I've reached out to Proprio 4 times and Shannon has as well, in the last 2 weeks. And so I have spoken with other school systems around the state, and they do use other services where the parents are able to call in and request an interpreter. So that is something that we are looking into.
Caitlin's working.
Yes,
Caitlin's
Caitlin's
We've had many meetings.
Yeah. Yes.
It's coming.
I think, I just want to pause for a
Yeah.
second. I know you're on a roll. I think it's important to convey this need. I'm glad that we're
Yeah.
having this meeting.
Yes.
Because we've just, on the heels of budget season, it's important
Yeah.
that people know this resources cost money, that every time we dial Proprio, it costs money. And I think people need to just understand it's an investment that we're having to make as a school department. And it's good that we are able to do that. We have great people, but there's an investment in it monetarily. And I think I just want to make sure I noted that.
I have a question. Written information for the families, lice, field trips, all those things. How is that communicated to the parents?
Yep. So
If their dominant language is not English.
Yep. So if, for example, if a field trip is going home, the teacher or whoever is a part of that translates it. We use things like Magic School AI if it's not a formal legal document. So we will translate that ourselves. We will staple it, to the English copy as
Also, we
well.
send it through like our Thrillshare website,
Yeah.
and it has a button at the bottom that says translate. And so they can get it in their own language. I try to do a lot through that, but again,
Anything we send through FieldShare is translatable.
And then Susan, anything special ed, any paperwork or any sort of medical document, anything like that is translated through Proprio and their written translation.
Yeah.
What we're finding is that not all of the families understand written language.
Correct. That's true.
Yes.
And we are working to make changes on the iLab. Again, Caitlin's helping us make those changes so that we can add those extra boxes in there. So that's clear to all staff.
Right.
Yes. And I do ask that question in the intake, and sometimes I feel like they might be embarrassed to tell me that they can't, read or write in their own language. So just trying to then have multiple follow-up conversations with them, and then lots of times we get a sense on, who's not able to, and so just making sure that we do address that as well.
Great.
Family outreach is definitely my favorite part of my job. So we go over everything from introduction to school. So we talk about busing, and it's so interesting too, because like in a lot of countries, there's like a bus system and you can get on the bus at whatever time you want, right? So here you miss the bus, you're not getting on another bus, and I've had parents say, I've tried to stop another bus. So I've added that. You cannot get on another bus. You need to be at the bus.
Yeah, the bus is tomorrow.
Yeah.
It's not just language, it's
Right.
culture.
Yeah. You have to be at the bus stop
Yes.
5 minutes early. We talk about what a typical school day looks like. The backpack comes to and from school. You empty out the folder. We go over everything from early release to, you have to be on time at school, right? And so homework, snow days, remote days. And then I also really try to talk to them, not so much in my first meeting with them, but what our expectations are for them as parents, right? So they need to report their absences. And right now, all of that is coming through me, through the WhatsApp. And then I report that to all the secretaries. So we are trying to find a way to make this work district-wide. They need to be
That's just
present
the
at the
new
bus
families.
stop. New families, yeah.
Families that have been around have learned other ways too.
Yeah. So they also have to be present at the bus stop, right? Because sometimes the bus will come back, especially with a pre-K student or a K student, because they wasn't present. So just really working on what our expectations are. some things that, we might sort of take for granted is dressing for each season. So like I have a conversation with them, what is appropriate wear clothing in the winter? And it's something as simple as, ski pants aren't worn all day, right? We wear them to recess, we take them off. We wouldn't wear slippers in school. We would need to wear shoes, and just all of those things. And also making sure that, that they are dressed appropriately. And Augusta, does a great job with the community coat drives and the backpack campaign, to help all students. So we do have a lot of great supports in place. And looking at, safe and stable housing, we know that when a child has a nighttime routine and they're in a predictable environment and they feel safe, we know that's going to set them up for success at school, and just really helping the families. Some of our families are unhoused, and what does that mean? And how do we make sure that they have the resources that they need?
When you say that, unhoused, I think right away the McKinney-Vento liaison, you work closely with, because when you identify families that might be sharing a space with another family, or that's the kind of work that you guys
living in a hotel. So I always let the the liaison know, and then I usually try to arrange all the busing.
And they can get even more support through that.
Right. So and that's part of it too, is working together as a team. I think a lot of this too, with a lot of our families, is nonverbal expression, right? So a child might be in my office and they might not have any idea what I'm saying while I meet with their parents, or sometimes the kids are speaking a different language than the parents, but there's something about knowing that there's just a person that cares. So when I greet the kids off the bus, sometimes I get this little extra squeeze, so I think that goes a long way with our kids. I think we have a lot to celebrate. A lot of our kids have made growth. So we talked about the WIDA access scores. So I'll just give you an example. I had a student who was new to the country. And at the beginning of the year, her speaking score was a 1. When I did a screen on her, and when we just did the access test, which just came back in the last couple weeks, she was a 4. So, we do see great gains, and I think we need to celebrate that. The routines being established, we do have many families that I've worked with. We've set appropriate bedtimes. We've talked about doing nightly homework. So part of when I see my groups, a lot of my students take nightly books home to read, and the parents sign off on them. And they talk about, hearing their child read and what that means. Education for all. So education for all is a priority, and that means our parents as well, right? So we want to encourage them to take English classes, whether it's through adult ed or some of the other classes that are offered. And we want our families to be independent, right? And I love it when I hear that the students are translating for family members out in the community, or they're able to schedule their own appointments, for different things that they need. I do help with a lot of that. And the feedback from the parents is that, and I say the parents, I have only been working with our new families, right? And I currently only have the afternoons to do this. So for a while I was meeting with a new family daily. And so we had a family start last week, but we haven't had anybody start yet this week.
It's only Wednesday. Only Wednesday. Kids this week, but it's only Wednesday.
It'll be the very first week.
So, and I do really feel the parents are so grateful, and I think like knowing that we're their safe people, and just the messages that they send us, and just, I feel like they know too that I usually try to check in on every kid's first day of school with the family after school. So if they're at Farrington, I try to get a picture of them, so that as a mom, I would want to see my child, in a school space. And so they're always thankful for that. I think it's wonderful when they come to school events. We had a music concert yesterday at Farrington. And of course I reached out to, the families that we see. And I was really impressed to see quite a few of them were there. They come to Student of the Month assemblies. They talk about that. They've actually asked sometimes if they can come back to another one. So they really do want to be a part of the school community. And sometimes, it's just getting them to be respectful of time and showing up at the beginning of the concert, not arriving at the end. And I do stress that. And I just think we need more practice. And looking forward, I would love to host classes for these parents and be able to meet with them more often. And our current ML numbers, so elementary, pre-K to 6, we have, as of today, we have 111. Farrington has 97. Middle school has 27. The high school has 65. District-wide today, we're at 203. We're celebrating that we have 15 students that are exiting based on
So, do they get a celebration? Is there some kind of?
They are spread out at
Okay,
multiple schools.
They're at different grades and different.
Yes,
Yeah, okay.
yes.
Okay.
So not all together.
Yes, we do celebrate, we will celebrate that when we start the services.
I'm just gonna say that there's like
2 or 3 minute time, like.
Okay, so
Warning, 2 or
yeah.
3 minute warning.
Okay, so looking ahead for next year, these are the numbers that we have. So we'll have 31 ML students at Barrington. Gilbert will have 34, not counting pre-K. Lincoln Elementary will have 11. Huzzy will have 8. Coney Middle School will have 28, and Coney will have 60. We're excited to expand and have a program in every school. And we are just happy with the progress that we've seen. We're excited, to be growing, and we're proud to be part of Augusta Schools. And my last plug is we have I don't know where that slide went. We had a cultural dinner coming up on May 27th, and I'd love to invite you. I think it would be a great opportunity to interact with our families in an impersonal way. So we have a couple, we have some people singing and different things that are happening. So we're also going to try to do a survey with our families that evening and have people on hand to help them answer questions. So that's exciting.
Did you mention dancing?
We're hoping to have dancing.
And I just would love to say, I just am such an awe and of Teresa and Kim and just all the staff. They've also done this without one whole teacher the entire year. So Jess has been extremely flexible and stepped up, teaching half of the time while doing all of this other work. And it's beyond impressive, the amount of work. And you saw the 50% increase in the number of students, 30% increase, not an increase in staff. These people are just working so hard to help our kids, and having 15 student exit, that is huge. So thank you all.
The only thing I just want to add, if I could, is that Jessica works at the afternoons in at Coney. So she's like usually there when I'm leaving here, right? Like, so she's like one of the last people. And anyway, there's an emotional toll too, because like sometimes like she's trying to find housing for people and like can't leave until she's found the housing, and she's made all these connections with all our community resources. And I know Shannon and some of our other teachers are doing the same, but I just think like that level of commitment is.
I think
and I don't know what we would have
yeah.
had this year if we didn't have.
the right person at the right time. Her background was working with housing and working with families, and so she is the right person for this job. And we always just try to tell her that she can't burn herself out, because she would work all.
We have good news. We're hiring an ESOL teacher tonight. You are.
Yeah.
So we're gonna be able to,
You'll have more of a
yeah,
team.
we're gonna, that means we'll free her up for what we actually hired her for.
Next year.
And
So, starting next year,
And Jessica was also
Yeah.
an elementary school teacher, so she has the teaching
Yes,
background.
Yeah,
Yeah.
never know.
And also just a plug for tonight, I'm gonna present at the full board about ESEA application, but we're probably, I have no idea, but we're probably not gonna get Catholic Charities, which is what Jessica is funded out of. So I'm gonna be looking at building that into our ESEA application. So would love for you to promote that tonight as well.
But and Shannon, became coordinator this year, so.
Yeah. Shannon is a wealth of information.
The wealth.
Moving forward.
Thank you for being the ambassadors of
Yeah.
to our new families. That's great.
We are still.
Good work, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you. We can adjourn the meeting.
Thank you.
Is that what you needed me to say?
I know, I didn't